What's up, guys? It's your boys Wokey back out with some more of the Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger video. And by you guys asking pretty much for more of professionals that have looked in on this case, we're looking at a death investigator that's like one of the top people in his field, which is Joseph Scott Morgan. Talks about Chris Watts and so forth, and pretty much stating everything that we've been saying pretty much. So we're going to look into it. One of the many videos this man does. I want to see if I can try to get him on my YouTube channel to talk and discuss the Chris Watts case, which would be fantastic, but we'll see what we can do. But before we go any further, you guys do me a solid favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel by hitting that wiper icon down at the bottom right. Hit that bell icon next to it, so when I do post videos like this one, you guys will get that little ring notification that I've posted that video. Then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, thank you guys so very much for the continued love and support that you guys show on this channel every single day. I can't thank you guys enough. Keep doing what you guys are doing, and we'll continue to keep growing together. Speaking of support, we are going to be watching the video from Law and Crime Network. If you guys have not watched them before, definitely go check them out. Do this thing, subscribe, comment, like, and share. And with that being said, let's get into this. And again, I want to make this very clear. Viewer discretion is advised, because the information we're about to hear can definitely bother some people. So I just wanted to put that out there. And with that being said, let's get into it.
I want to welcome you to the Law and Crime Network. I'm going to be your host, Julie Rendelman, for the next 2 hours. And that is Chris Watts.
The video is only 35 minutes, so bear with me.
Talking about how he met his wife, who he eventually murdered. And he talks a little bit about how he had never really had a girlfriend before until he met her, and that she was probably the stronger of the personalities.
I do believe there is a video on this Joseph Scott Morgan that also talks about NK. So if you want to watch that one with me, definitely comment down below, and let's continue.
Between the two of them, I want to bring in our special guest for this afternoon. It's Joseph Scott Morgan. Good morning, Joseph, or good afternoon. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it's good to join you, Julie.
And Joseph, I know we call you a forensic death investigator, and you know, just for a moment, tell me, what are your thoughts? Why does an individual, if you can put yourself in his shoes, decide to make a statement after he's already confessed and already knows what his sentence is?
I don't know. You know, it's kind of a head scratcher, and from the beginning, I was very reflective. I covered this case in multiple media outlets from actually one. I was very vested in this particular case, and at the end, when it came time for him to confess, it left me wanting, because I wanted, just like BTK was required all those years ago, I wanted him to allocute in court. I wanted to hear what happened. I wanted him to stand and deliver and state in the affirmative.
We wanted a trial to hear everything. I know we want to respect the Ruseks, and I want to respect the Ruseks so much as well. And I don't want them to relive any of this trauma that they had received and so forth like that. But I feel the trial would have opened Pandora's box into showing that there wasn't only one person. There was an accomplice, and we would have been able to talk to Nicole. She would have had to go to the stand. We would have seen possibly Chris go to the stand. I wish this would have gone to trial.
Affirmative, everything that he had done, to give us the details, because that's one of the things that kind of left us, wanting here. What was your rationale behind this? What did you do with these precious little children? What did you do with your pregnant wife? And
what about your mistress?
Why he would do this at this point in time, I have no idea. I don't know if he's leveraging something, or I have nothing. I have no idea as to what he has to gain. But I wish it had taken place sooner.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that we wish that. And sometimes I wonder. We always talk about these different individual serial killers and the like that want to talk after they've either been convicted or they're facing death row.
I don't think Watts still this day murdered Shanann because of what she said. Because she said, oh, you couldn't see the kids? So his mind goes, oh, I can't see the kids, you're going to take them away from me? Let me murder all of you so I really can't see them, and then I'm happy. That makes no sense. He prepared for this. He knew what he was doing. He was waiting for her to come home. He was going to murder her regardless of the kids. That's what put him over the edge. But again, I don't think she said you couldn't see the kids.
And the question I always ask myself is, are they doing it to help the victims, or are they doing it in their own way to almost brag about what they were able to accomplish? He's a little different. I think he's a unique one, if there can be such a thing. And I'm confused a little bit about why he is at this point choosing to give such details.
And why he's giving details now about this Jezebel, aka Miss Nicholkessinger. He's probably getting sick in prison. He just can't do it anymore. And he's like, how do I tell them without telling them? I'll call it my Jezebel. Jezebel in biblical times was the woman that you stay away from, that would take you away and have you mess around when you're not supposed to and stuff like that. Chris Watts, Jezebel was NK.
Yeah, and the nature of what he's going on here with Julie is just ghastly, absolutely ghastly, and I don't understand what's the impetus behind this. And again, I'm a cynic. I've either been conducting death investigations or commenting on death investigations my entire adult life, and I always think that there is something to be leveraged here, particularly when you have an individual that is a convicted murderer that is now housed for the rest of his life in this place in Colorado. And I still want to know, well, what's the compelling interest here? Did he suddenly have some kind of spiritual awakening, relative to his worldview or something? And I don't even know that's not even a substantive rationale for it, because the kindest thing he could have done from Jump Street was to offer some type of balm, some kind of salve on the souls and the hearts of these family members that are left behind in his wake. This brutal event that he took place in, just an absolute massacre. So I have to think, being the cynic that I am, there's something to be gained here on his part.
Sure, and we're going to talk more. I'd like to take another look at some additional footage of the audio statement that he gave to investigators. Let's take a look, and then we can analyze it with Joseph Scott Morgan.
Let's do it.
What were you thinking this whole time? Like,
in the back of my head, I was just telling myself, what are you doing? Like, every time, I open up my phone, I can see pictures, and, like, of my wife and my kids, and just like, what am I doing? And then, like, every time I was with her, it seemed like I didn't think. It seemed like it was like a blinder that was in my face.
Oh.
And it just, like, every time I look back on it, like, like, I have pictures of my wife and kids and myself, and, like, every night, or every morning, every night, I just, talk to them, say, like I have, like, this book I used to read for Cece, and I remember that book, so I read that to them, like, every night, and, like, there's some scripture and stuff that I read to them, so I just try to think back, like, I wish this never happened. And just, like, I wish that blinder wasn't on my head, right in my eyes. That would have seen what was going on. Like, I was having, like, everybody says, oh, you're just out there having fun while your kids, or kids and wife are on vacation. I'm just like, no, it wasn't like that. But it seemed like that's what it looked like when, when you're going, you're going to camping, going to drag race, going all that other stuff that you have fun doing, but you're with somebody else. It's not your family. It just didn't seem right. With her, it just didn't seem like I could even see that anymore. Yeah. I was there at her house pretty much every night. So it was like I didn't have that time at home just to really think about.
A real man would have known this is wrong and would have left the mistress, or would have never intrigued in mistress at all. He would have been faithful and stayed with his family. You were just thinking about naked Nicole and the butt stuff and the cat eating that you kept doing with her. That's all you kept doing.
Anything. Because literally, I didn't, like, I was only at home from, like, when I got home from work. I worked out, I ate dinner, and then I went over to her house. Like, I never slept in my house, like, the whole month of July.
Because you're getting
and
booty.
Here we have Chris Watts talking about the relationship he had with.
It wasn't love. It was lust. It was sexual desire that he wanted from her. It wasn't love. He don't know what love is. This man had to Google love, what it means to love. When should I say I love you? Like, if you have to Google that, you don't know what love is.
One of his children, where he used to read books to her at night, including the scripture. I mean, Joseph Scott Morgan, you can hear perhaps some level of tears. I want to ask you about, to go back to your cynicism, which unfortunately I have along with you, because, I have trouble feeling sorry for him, which is almost how I feel he wants me to feel. And quite frankly, I think we all end up feeling quite the opposite.
Yeah, we do. And again, this is something that in forensics, those moments that we have alone at the scene where we're looking over this destruction.
And again, the only time this mofo cried was when his mommy was talking to him.
That is left in its wake. You're there, on a crime scene. You have this silence, this deafening silence that's in your brain as you're working through the eyes of a scientist. But yet,
and nothing wrong with mama's boys that might be in today's society, because they're probably not murdering their families. I'm just saying it because the situation. So
there's a narrative that's painted before you in the images that you're seeing, and it really gives you pause to think, how could somebody do this? What was their motivation? And I got to tell you, I've obviously witnessed the aftermath of many of these horrible events, and still, the most dangerous question, someone I think probably to a lesser degree attorneys in the court, but certainly I know myself as an investigator, the most dangerous question we can ever ask, and it's a question everybody wants to have answered, is why. Why will drive you to insanity? The best thing that you can do is talk about what, how, these sorts of things. How did this take place? Because you'll never understand why.
Now, I agree with you completely. Let's speaking of why, I think that when we start to delve into these audios, which we're about to do, we're going to start to hear a little more details about the day that these individuals were killed through Chris Watts' own words. Let's take a look. And as we listen to the Chris Watts audio taped confession, we start to hear what at least Chris Watts' view is the breaking point, where it became a conversation with his now deceased wife to her brutal murder and the eventual brutal murder of her two children. I want to bring in Joseph Scott Morgan. And the interesting thing you start to hear is here he is saying he's in bed with his wife. They've had sex, and then he decides to tell her, because he thinks she must know at this point that he has another relationship, that things aren't working. And the buzzword seems to be that she says to him, well, you're not going to see your kids again. And it sounds like that seems to be when everything all breaks loose. Thoughts?
Yes, it kind of sets him off at that point in time. And, let's go back. He talked about the gift card, and that came up quite a bit.
He said when he put his daughters to bed, this is the last night I'm putting them to bed. So that already implied that he was going to murder them anyways. So just because if she did or did not say, you'll never see the kids again, that's not why he did it. That didn't set him off. What set him off is the stuff that was building up, and then the whole vacation at North Carolina, and then the turmoil that the fighting that Shanann and Cindy had that kind of like separated everything, because they were trying to be mutual kind of a little bit, but they weren't being mutual. We've seen them take pictures again we've seen them take pictures together and so forth here and there. But I mean, the Watts family didn't even show up to the wedding. That says volumes in itself. So
the conversations that we had over the period of time, he was trying to hide, if folks will remember at home, and I know our listeners will, he was trying to hide this relationship with this other person, and that she was on to it. She was aware of it. Some people have stated that was her rationale for actually leaving. It wasn't just a just a business trip. She needed to get her head clear. Came back that night. They're laying in bed. He says that he hears her or feels her get in bed, hears her stirring around. She rubs him, I guess rubbing his back, and they engage in sex at that point in time. But then there's that period of time where he states that it was then we woke up, or he woke up, and this conversation, begins. His direct quote was, "It's not going to work. It's not going to work." I didn't particularly understand what he meant when he stated, "Get off of her." I don't know if he meant that he was atop of her and she's saying, "Get off of me," or if she is referring to the mistress, "Get off of her, leave this be" at this point in time. So a bit confused by that. But yeah, I think that there's this kind of epiphanal moment for him, where he realizes that he's way in over his head. Now he makes this fateful decision. Now there's people all over this country, Julie, as you well know, you're an attorney, that have illicit affairs. They don't wind up killing their spouses, though.
No,
he did.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Yeah, no. There's other ways to get out of a marriage. That's for sure. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna be right back. Thank you.
Called co-parenting and divorce would have been the better solution. The best solution would have been to fight for your marriage. Shanann was a good catch, I believe.
And welcome back to Law and Crime. Your host, Julie Rendelman, for the next hour and a half. We're following the breaking story of Chris Watts out of Colorado. As you know, Chris Watts pled guilty to the brutal murder of his wife, Shanann, and their 2 young children. His wife was also pregnant with their unborn child at the time that he committed this horrible murder. If those of you recall in the press, he had been initially saying that someone else did it and eventually confessed. He is now serving life without the possibility of parole and has since sat down with investigators to give information, more detailed information about the brutal death of his supposed loved ones. Let's take a look at some statements he made about how it came to be that he ended the life of his family.
Everything, just reading the scripture more and more now, I can see God gave me opportunities to get out. Even my friend Jeremy Lindstrom, he even invited me because it was his daughter that came and watched the kids on that Saturday night. And he was like, "Hey, you said we're going to a Rocky game. You want to go to me with the Bronco game and watch the Arizona Cardinals?" In my mind, it was go. Just say, "Hey, I can't find a babysitter." Bye. And maybe that would have been a light switch in my head goes off, light switch in her head goes off, maybe it just goes different directions. That was kind of my last opportunity to kind of get out, it seems like. I wish I would have said, "Yeah, let's go." And I think that would have just put me on a different trajectory.
So then on that night, was it just a new type of fight?
It was
never had, or what happened?
Yeah, it was a totally different type of fight. It was just felt like, I don't know, it was more anger than anything else. There was emotion to it at first, and then it just felt like it was just anger. It was just
anger on your part.
It was kind of what we were saying, what she was saying. It was just it's almost like we knew something was combating at each other. We didn't know, it wasn't ourselves.
Really? Anger from you, or
it wasn't yourself?
anger from her?
I think it was more anger from...
See, he can't take full responsibility. He's got to say we or us, or it's no, it's you. But if you're saying we, maybe it might be Nicole when he talks about her, but he keeps blaming Shanann as well, that we were having a worse argument. No, it was you that had the problem.
For me, and more like desperation from her to, because she wanted to fix it. Yeah. She knew something wasn't right. Like,
here we have Chris Watts talking to investigators about the fact that first he indicates that he wishes that he had gone in a different direction. Had he gone out that day with one of his friends, perhaps things would have happened differently. And then the question the investigators asked him was basically, what happened? What type of fight was this? And what I'm sensing from Chris Watts, and Joseph Scott Morgan is here to kind of analyze this, is that he indicates this is not the normal fight that they had, that the fight that was happening caused him to have the anger that he had never felt before. I think he described that he didn't love her anymore, and the anger kind of spewed over. You know,
like
Joseph Scott Morgan, you know, one of the questions when we ask about why is that, you know, some people wonder, did he premeditate? Did he plan this?
Yes.
Even a skeptic, I do wonder, there is a part of me that tends to believe this was not a planned event, that somehow he snapped. No excuse, but I think that, you know, when I'm listening to him, I tend
He literally said that he was thinking about this for weeks.
To believe that aspect of it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that looking at this, there's planned and then there's planned.
Right.
You know, if you're not planning, for me, it's almost like a reactionary event where you go to no lengths whatsoever to hide the mortal remains of someone. Was it a reactive event? Potentially. But then planning kicked in at that point in time. It's kind of an odd case because he's left with the body of his wife after he, takes her life away. What is he going to do with her at that point? And that's where planning comes in. So it's kind of a bit of.
That's where people believe that the hole was dug before that night, because there's no way in those 38 minutes of uninterrupted time that he had time to go out to Survey 319, murder his girls, not curls, girls, drop them in each tank individually. So he went up, murdered Celeste, came back down, murdered Bella, went back up again, and then dug the hole and looked like he didn't break a sweat. That's where people think that the hole was dug beforehand.
Both, if you will. And what's he going to do with her? Well, he has to have a place to put her. And was he thinking all along? Was he thinking all along, well, what am I going to do with these kids now? And that's a big head scratcher.
Yeah, no, I want to talk more about it. We're going to take another clip, and then I want to analyze that a little more, because I think you are right. There is an aspect of it after his wife is dead that the planning really does kick in. It's not just what he's going to do with his kids, what he's going to do with his wife's body, and eventually what he's going to do with his children's body. Let's take a look at this clip, and we'll talk some more.
I woke her up to talk to her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is that because it was just eating at your brain?
Yeah, like I knew, like, you know, something was still right with me. Something I know, like, she knew.
He could have just went to work, thought it out, just looked at his options. He could have went to work. You idiot.
I just felt like maybe the kids weren't going to be there when I got home that day.
Oh, interesting. Now, I don't mean to offend, but I have to ask, is that really the truth?
So it's kind of like almost him saying that if I can't, if I'm not going to be with Shanann and my girls, nobody's going to be able to do it. Does that sound kind of like something you guys are thinking about? I don't know if I'm on it, but I just wanted to know.
I really felt like they weren't going to be there when I got home that day.
Oh.
Like she would take them somewhere?
No, I just felt like either maybe I wouldn't go home, maybe they weren't going to be there, or I wouldn't be allowed in, type of thing.
He didn't want to be
I think
left.
I saw some text messages where Shanann talked about that she would take the kids to another state or something because she wouldn't be able to afford to live in Colorado.
I guarantee Shanann would have had to go back to North Carolina, because she even said to her friends that I can't afford being out in Colorado by myself, which is not wrong. what they could have done is sold the house in Colorado, divvied up the assets and the expenses and stuff like that, gone back to North Carolina, gone their separate ways. It could have been one done and whatever, but of course, Chris was focusing on all the ideas with Nicole. You think Nicole would have went to North Carolina? No.
Or something. Did she say that kind of stuff to you, or
Yep.
what did she say about that?
She said she couldn't afford to live in Colorado on her own, and that I told her, like, well, you can drive, and she pretty much makes the same amount I do.
Yeah.
But she said she would.
Chris made $45,000 to $50,000 a year. Shanann made just about as much as he did. But yet people look at her spending like that they were making between $80,000 to $100,000 a year.
She wouldn't want to try, just because, you know, Colorado, just price of living there was a lot higher than North Carolina.
And just so I'm clear, you thought maybe she in your mind, you thought maybe she would take the kids somewhere else, or like lock you out of the house, or
just like, you know, I wouldn't want to make a scene, like, you know, trying to like pound on the door, trying to get in or anything like that. But like, I just felt like, you know, that was what I did on Sunday. You know, it was kind of like, or Saturday night was kind of like the last straw. Kind of like going out with somebody and using an actual bank account card and just like not trying to hide it.
And this is an interesting thing that Chris Watts is saying. He's saying, you know, there were thoughts that perhaps his wife was going to leave with the kids and move to another state because she couldn't afford to live where they are. And I want to bring you back in, Joseph Scott Morgan, because my question is if they were going to leave, then why does he need to kill them? You know, if in a sense he's not going to have them in his life, in a sense if he wants to be with this new woman, why not let them go, and then he doesn't have to end the life of these three beautiful individuals?
I think his statement that his kids would not be there, neither would she, is pure projection and fantasy. You know, that maybe all things will work out like they're supposed to, and that there won't be any pain involved in this. And maybe at one level, this is a trigger mechanism. When he realizes that is, in fact, not going to be the reality, this fantasy he's created. And trust me, you don't have to be insane to create a fantasy.
But what is that fantasy? What is the fantasy?
Well, I think ultimately the fantasy is the fact that he's going to, you know, live his life the way he wants to. This girlfriend that he has on the side now, they're engaged in a very intimate relationship, and that his family would just simply go away and save him the pain and the heartache of having to, you know, make other decisions and you know, perpetrate what he eventually perpetrate. I think that this, at one level, this may have been resting in the back of his mind all along. I mean, we'll never know.
That's true.
But, you know, potentially it could have been.
Yeah, no, by the way, as you said, we will never know the real why. We can only shake our heads, scratch our heads and question.
He keeps lying.
So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more of this interesting audio statement of Chris Watts. So I want to bring in Joseph Scott Morgan to talk about this for a moment. Joseph Scott Morgan is a forensic death investigator out of Jacksonville State University in Alabama. Thank you for being with us. You know, what he's describing is what every man and every woman who's having an affair describes, which is they found someone new who makes them feel alive, makes them feel good about themselves. And I hate to rehash this, but that's nothing new. And so you can't, and I guess we always go back to scratching our heads saying, like, how the heck in the world do you go from having an affair to brutally murdering your pregnant wife and your two kids? And there's such a selfishness in what he's describing as is, let alone the next step he took to kill them. My mind is just blown when I listen to this, although I'm never shocked.
No, hopefully we never will be shocked or cease to be shocked. You know, the old adage comes to mind, it's always greener over the septic tank. You know, and there's a distinct imbalance here. It's a real asymmetry when you talk about, okay, well, you're bored with your relationship. This is equal to the lives of this precious family that you've been gifted. And the two things, you know, for those of us that walk around out here, day in and day out, and don't go around killing those that are supposedly in our circle that we love the most. It's a real head scratcher, and you can't come back to center and kind of be able to rationalize that. That's why I go back to this idea that for all of these years that I've looked at cases inside and out, why drives you to madness? Because you never can fully understand it, no matter how hard you try. And I guarantee you that even in the in the wake of these statements that we're listening to, there are still going to be whys. Why in the world would you do this?
Sure.
Why in the world would you do this? Why would you just destroy their lives? And then all of the secondary and tertiary victims that are involved in this as well. Why would you impact the world in which you enjoy it like this?
Yeah.
All for your self-centered behavior.
Yeah.
He had so much that so many guys would kill for. Yeah, okay, you had some finance problems. What marriage doesn't? You're going to run into some hard times, some good times, some bad times, but that's what it says in your vows, for richer or for poor, through sickness and health. You're each other's rock. And he pretty much was like, yep, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to be with Shanann. But instead he was like, no, I don't want to be with Shanann.
He had everything. He has absolutely nothing now. We're going to take a look at another clip, and then we'll do some further analysis.
He's got 4 walls, concrete walls.
So then Shanann's in the truck. Then went back to the house.
Got everybody back in the truck.
Was Bella first or was Cece first?
In the truck.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So Shanann was first, and then Bella was next. Was Bella alive when you guys got in the truck? Oh, okay. What happened?
I woke back up.
Okay.
I don't really want to talk about this part, honestly.
Okay.
Those are my kids. It's my baby. I have to talk to them every night. I don't see it on the screen.
Okay.
Every time I see pictures of them, I don't know how this could have happened. Being a dad was the best part of my life. I took it all away.
I think that's the hardest part for us, Chris, is we see those videos, we see that love that you had for your girls. Like, it's obvious to us, and even to us, it's hard for us to understand how a dad who's given piggyback rides and, you know, making snacks and watching princess movies and those kinds of things, how you get to that point, you know?
I don't know. Like I said, it was just like something else was controlling me that day. I had no control over what I was like to fight back.
Yeah.
Like when that prosecutor said that Bella bit her tongue, like repeatedly, I just wanted to just bang my head up against the wall.
And so we're hearing Chris Watts break down for the first time, at least during this interview, where he talks about you know, the fact that he killed his children and how he doesn't know how he had done that because he had loved them so much. Joseph Scott Morgan, you know, one of the things I heard him say is something to the effect of he had lost control. Maybe I misunderstood him, but it sounded like he was using those words. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, he did. He stated that he lost control at that moment in time. So what he's telling us is that he no longer possessed the restraint to move forward and, you know, commit this heinous act. And you have to really, you know, I think that people at home and all around want to know, you know, what's the measure of that? How at what point do you get to where you breach that point where you're so out of control that you're going to wrap your hands around someone's throat whom you dearly love and strangle them or take a...
And so much anger that I've had over the years with my spouse. Yeah, you get angry, you get sad, you get back up, you do it again. Like I've always told my fiance, go to bed, we'll try again tomorrow. That's kind of like what I think about it. And if let's say we don't ever work out, okay, there is separation. I've always told her that she's my one and done, done. Like, I'm done after her because I just don't want to redo it all over again. That's why Chris doing it when he was pretty much doing it all over again with Nicole, and he was starting over, but he had already started there and was comparing the two and thought that Nicole was obviously better and decided to go that route. But his route, like I just said, I would never get so angry that I would murder somebody, let alone the people that I love, because it makes no sense. Why would you do that? Even if, let's say, my spouse cheated on me. Let's say if my wife or my lady, my missus, if she cheated on me, let's say, okay, I'd be very angry. But I would never commit murder. Let's say she took my car and she took a hammer to it and just banged it all up. I would not murder her. Like, it makes no sense for her to do that. Chris doing this makes no sense.
Blanket and smother them, or just name any number of things. What's that point in time where you're going to
that's why I believe that Nicholkessinger had more motive to have the family gone, because then she would be able to win Chris. She would able to have Chris to herself. She'd have the insurance money if they got away with it. I honestly think NK has more motive on the murders than Chris Watts did. Chris was next in line. Yeah, Chris gets Nicholkessinger if he murders his family, but Nicholkessinger gets Chris and doesn't have to either participate in the murders, or she just tells him to do it and her hands are still clean. Just saying.
Cross that threshold. And I don't know that he offers up any good excuse. He does, in fact, offer up blubbering.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're going to take a break and then we'll be right back. As a former homicide prosecutor, you expect me to be immune from hearing such brutality, and I don't think you ever get used to it. I want to bring in Joseph Scott Morgan because, we understand that the wife of Chris Watts was asphyxiated, and I know I used to deal with that a lot in many of my trials. People seem to think that there's a shorter time period for someone to die that way, and I hate to talk so brutally, but I think it's important for our audience to understand what that means and what happens.
No, you cannot separate the brutality in this case. People need to understand this. Let's go back just for a second, Julie. Do you remember when Chris was talking in the interview where he was talking about straddling her? He was atop of her, in my opinion at least, and it would seem that it syncs with what the pathologist was.
He would have had to have been on her groin area to be on top of her, because he wouldn't have been able to be on top of her chest and stomach area, so he would have had to shimmy down. So you're telling me that he went over top of the belly and strangled her over top of the belly? I'm very questionable on that. A lot of people think that possibly somebody else was holding her hands, or it's just, I don't know. Again, we looking too far into it possibly, but again, that's why this case is so up there, is because NK's got to be involved in some shape or form. We just don't know how involved she was.
Finding as well, she was in what's called a supine position in bed. That means she's face up in bed. He's atop of her. Remember, she's pregnant, so it's in very tight quarters here. He's atop of her. In her evidence of injury, the autopsy report indicates that on the right side, and folks at home will literally feel this kind of a large body in the center of their throat. This is the thyroid cartilage. There are these little muscles that run alongside, and they originate up by the tongue, but it runs alongside. One of the things that we look for in cases of strangulation are actually hemorrhage into these muscles. And I think that he asphyxiated her by probably applying what's referred to as a C-clamp. Now, it's on the right-hand side. It's in this aspect right here. So he would have applied a C-clamp. This is called C-clamping, and for those that don't know, this is referred to as throttling when you use both hands. There's not as much hemorrhage on this side, so it would mean that the dependent area would be resting where my thumb is right now.
So keep
in mind, Chris Watts was in really good shape. Julie, you remember seeing the photos of him?
Oh,
He
yeah,
had been buffed up. He had lost weight. He's going to the gym regularly. And this is a woman that is not only pregnant, but she has medical issues of her own. And she's just come back from this long, protracted trip. And we all know what it's like to step off of a plane. You're bone weary at this point, not to mention she's pregnant. So it would not have taken much to asphyxiate her. And I think that he did this by manual strangulation.
Well, when you say not taken much, let's just be clear. It's not easy to do something like that.
No, it's not easy to do it, but when you consider, I'm factoring in the fact that she's in a weakened state, she's tired, she's in this dreamlike sleepiness, and he's overpowered her. He set his course on doing this, and this guy is strong, and he's able to do this atop of her, this pregnant woman.
Sure. Thank you for those details. We're gonna go to another clip, and then we'll analyze it further. Thanks.
I remember you kept telling me that. You kept saying, I didn't know what I was doing, Tammy. I didn't know. Like,
yeah, when you asked me about the sheet, like, what were you doing? Like, I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
That's a cop-out.
I think you were just like in automatic mode, or it seemed like. So did you straight out there? So what were you thinking on the way out there?
It's kind of like what I was doing right now. I'm just like, nervous, shaking, not knowing, like, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, my life is completely changed. I don't know, like, what's happening. Like, honestly, like, I try to picture that whole ride. Like, it's like 45 minutes to an hour ride out there. And it's just like, couldn't I have, like, saved my girl's life? Couldn't I have?
But see, this is where I don't feel sorry for him. Well, because he's, one, a murderer, but two, he looked up the Battery song from Metallica. Yeah. Kill the family with the battery.
Why did I do that? I don't know.
Right.
Like, this is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life, was to be a dad, just to have, kids, and they love me, all that, and it just nothing made sense.
Right.
Like the oil tank, nothing made sense. I'm just like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And there's Chris Watts talking to investigators about the options he had in terms of whether he had to have killed his children. Joseph Scott Morgan, I just want to bring you in just to, here you have two investigators that are talking to him, obviously after he's already pled, so there's not, they're not being analyzed for whether or not they're being forceful or not, but they're doing an incredibly, I think, effective job of letting him talk and not making them the focus, but making him the focus, which I think is something that a lot of investigators can learn from when it comes to taking a defense.
Yeah, like the one that Nicole Kessinger had, Kobach, he let her talk.
And its statements, especially in a case like this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This isn't coffee table talk. You have to be able, and it's called active listening. It's where you ask open-ended questions. You make it a comfortable environment for this individual. It doesn't mean that the investigators like this guy, but you can tell they're kind of, they're giving at least the appearance that they're warming up to him. They ask him open-ended questions, but yet they're directing him a bit to try to just get him to offer up a narrative about what happened. Keep in mind, there's no skin in the game at this point in time. He's already been sentenced now, so he can hold forth with whatever he wants to hold forth. It's a much more comfortable moment in time than it was earlier when they interrogated him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They did an incredibly effective job, and certainly something that I think allowed him to be more forthright, if he was going to be, with regards to the details of what happened. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with some more of the audio taped statement.
Jeez. Listen to this death investigator. It definitely has opened my eyes a little bit more on certain things.
And we look forward to Brian Ross Investigates at 5:30 p.m. I want to bring back my guest, Joseph Scott Morgan. He is a forensic death investigator out of Jackson State University in Alabama. You know, Joseph, one of the things we were talking about before is that you noted, or they noted, that on Cece, which is, I believe, the younger of the children, that she did not have the particular hemorrhage that you had referred to as something that can be commonplace when it comes to asphyxiation. In any way, does it make it possible that she died differently than her sister did? Okay, I think we're having some
technical
trouble hearing.
You got me now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know if you heard my question.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I got it.
If you want to start over so everyone can get a chance to hear you.
Yeah, the thing about this is that we can pair up, once again, his strength with the weakness of the small child. She had no defense in this particular case. She's very fragile, very young.
Probably didn't know what was happening.
It was, I'd like to say, I hope that it was quick. I don't know that it was, but he asphyxiated her. And let's keep in mind that not only did he place his hand over her mouth, he states that he used her blanket as well as a facilitator in this particular case of death. And so, yeah, there was very little trauma to Cece's body. Of course, Bella has a full awareness of what's going on. And remember what he just said there, Julie. He said that Bella stated to him, I don't want this to happen to me. You know, how can you continue on in light of this?
Yeah, no, it's hard to imagine. You know, I know you're probably going to be back with Aaron Keller, but do you have any final thoughts before we end this afternoon session about what we've been watching?
Well, yeah, there's some relief in this. I got to tell you, Julie, I'm pleased that we have some answers at this point in time.
But not all of them.
Again, I have no idea what this guy's motivation is for doing this. I'm glad that it should have happened a long time ago. I think he should have been compelled by the court to allocute in the midst of this. But I'm glad that we have it right now.
I agree with you. I'm going to be signing off, and Aaron Keller is going to be back with the Daily Debrief. Thank you for being with us.
So again, guys, there are more of this gentleman, Joseph Scott Morgan, talking about the whole Watts case. I could definitely do more reactions because, one, hello, he's a death inspector or investigator. He's a professional. He's been doing this for years, since he's been an adult. I mean, and it's probably 30, 40 plus years this man's been doing this. I definitely believe a lot that he says, or I agree with. And again, I'm not a professional. I'm just some Joe Schmo behind a keyboard that's playing police officer or playing the good guy. I'm just trying to find the answers because I believe in some shape or form that NK is the catalyst. She is the devil's mistress. She is the butt stuff woman. She's just bad juju. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts down below. Of course, as always, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, as always. Share with your friends, and we will see you guys in the next video. So please take care, be safe, and as always, keep nerding on, and we will see you guys in the next video.